Yo, man, what's going on with your YouTube family? To be your boy, Yo, man, trucking right here. Um, this is basically me getting my CDL during COVID or whatnot. Basically, I'm gonna take you along the process. I'm about to go meet up with my instructors for the first time. I'm still in trucking school. Um, you wanna know what trucking school I'm in? I'm in Vision Trucking School, um, based out of Dallas, Texas, or whatnot. And yeah, I'm gonna take you along for the journey for to get ready to go ahead and go meet up with my instructor. What's going on with the YouTube family? Yeah, man. Yeah, man. Yeah, they go on the truck right there behind me. Whatnot. We at the site where I gotta meet my instructors or whatnot at. Um, hopefully I can get this turned around and whatnot. As you see back there. No, never mind the football pads in the back. That's just my stuff. Yeah, this is how training is done during COVID or whatnot. I don't know if you can see or not. Let me step out the car. They go to training facility over there. Well, not the training facility, but a training course, whatnot over there. Where some of the new drivers they are taking it. Some of them driving, some of them just not getting introduced to it. But most definitely, this will be the truck that I'll be in. It's a green truck. Don't know what type of truck it is, but just basically waiting on my trainer or my instructor to hit me up or give me some insight about something. I have to put on my vest and get to it. Hopefully, if I can record, they'll let me record. But if not, then it's just the first day of training. So being at during this COVID-19 pandemic, whatnot, I've been this is the process that I've been going to CDL school, like doing online courses, the online classes and whatnot, because social distancing and whatnot. And so you have another truck coming. And basically, it's been a tough process for me in general because I've been trying to do this since March, and then now it's like September. So when the pandemic all happened, they shut everything down, so I wasn't nothing moving. So I like the best way to do it is, get in truck school when they open everything back up, like in June or whatever. Well, not everything, but some things up in June. I jumped on it, and in Texas or whatnot, Texas is is a trucking state, so hopped on it. See my opportunity. It took me like 2 months to enroll into school because I was basically on unemployment, not really working, just sitting at the house and all that stuff. And I like, what? Doing this opportunity during COVID, let me take a chance. Let me go ahead and hop on it. Went through hell when I trying to get through the process or whatnot, getting your driver license straight, getting tickets off your record and all that stuff, and just doing the necessity things that you need to do in order to get your stuff right. But yeah, this is it. It was for me. I keep you updated, keep you posted or whatnot. Holla at
A few moments later.
Then I'm going to look at my headlight assembly. My headlight assembly is properly mounted and secured. Not cracked, bent, or broken. I'm missing any nuts, bolts, and screws. It has 3 components. Here, I've got my multi-purpose or multifunctional. It's my left turn signal, right turn signal, 4-way flashers, marker light. Clean, operational, amber in color. In the center, I have my high beams and low beams on my headlights. Clean, operational, clear in color. And then I have my front reflector. Clean, operational, white or clear in color. Okay? Now I'm going to look under the hood. Yeah. First thing I I need to do is chock the wheels and shut off my light. General hoses. They're properly mounted and secured. Anything rubber, no abrasions, bulges, or cuts. Not leaking. Second of all, our AC compressor is properly mounted and secured. Not cracked, bent, or broken, not missing any nuts, bolts, and screws. It is belt driven, not leaking. My alternator, properly mounted and secured, not cracked, bent, or broken, not missing any nuts, bolts, and screws. The wires are properly mounted and secured, no abrasions, bulges, and cuts, no bare wires. It is also belt driven. My belt is properly mounted and secure, no abrasions, bulges, and cuts, and no more than 3/4 inch play. That's the 4 things you'll do on this side. Now we go to the other side.
Out here.
First off, I like to bunch things up into groups so I never forget where we are. So I got 4 fluid levels or reservoirs. First off, engine coolant, properly mounted and secured. It's not cracked, bent, or broken, not missing any nuts, bolts, and screws. It is at the proper level. It is not leaking and has a cap. Washer fluid, properly mounted and secured, not cracked, bent, or broken, not missing any nuts, bolts, and screws, not leaking, and has a cap. My oil, I will pull it out, clean it off, put it back in. Pull it out. If it's between the add and the pull, I'm okay. If it's below the add, I'll put a gallon into the oil fill. Finally, my power steering reservoir is properly mounted and secure, no abrasions, bulges, or cuts, not missing any nuts, bolts, and screws, not leaking, and has a cap. My power steering hoses, they're properly mounted and secured, no abrasions, bulges, or cuts, not leaking. My power steering pump is properly mounted and also gear driven and not leaking. My air compressor, properly mounted and secure, not cracked, bent, or broken, not missing any nuts, bolts, and screws. It is gear driven, not leaking. My air hoses, properly mounted and secured, no abrasions, bulges, and cuts, not leaking. Upper steering linkage, which is my steering shaft, no more than 10 degrees or 2 inches of play. My gearbox, properly mounted and secured, not cracked, bent, or broken, not missing any nuts, bolts, and screws, not leaking. My lower steering linkage, which is my pitman arm, my drag link, steering knuckle, and tie rod. They're properly mounted and secured. not cracked, bent, or broken, not missing any nuts, bolts, and screws. And they're all secured with cancel nut and open cotter pin. Now next we go to our three components: suspension, brakes, tires, and rims. Suspension has 6 elements to it. First off, front and rear spring mounts. Properly mounted and secured, not cracked, bent, or broken, not missing any nuts, bolts, and screws. The bushing is properly mounted and secured, not worn. My leaf spring is properly mounted and secured, not cracked, bent, or broken, not scissored, not twisted, not shifted. Next is my U-bolt. Properly mounted and secured, not cracked, bent, or broken, not missing any nuts, bolts, and screws. Next I have my shock absorber. Properly mounted and secured, not cracked, bent, or broken, not missing any nuts, bolts, and screws, not leaking. Number 6 is my airbag. This axle has no airbag. You must say that. This axle has no airbag. Next we go to the brakes. The brakes have 5 components. First off, we got our brake hoses. Properly mounted and secured, no abrasions, bulges, and cuts, not leaking. Next we got our brake chamber. It's properly mounted and secured, not cracked, bent, or broken, not missing any nuts, bolts, and screws, not leaking. Next we have our slack adjuster and push rod. Properly mounted and secured, not cracked, bent, or broken, not missing any nuts, bolts, and screws, no more than 1 inch of play. Next we have our brake lining. It's properly mounted and secured. It's not cracked, bent, or broken, not missing any nuts, bolts, and screws. No less than 1/4 inch of lining at the thinnest part. No grease, no debris. Finally, our brake drum. It's properly mounted and secured, not cracked, bent, or broken, no illegal welds, no illegal holes, no grease, no debris. Tires. Tires has 3 things we must say. First off, properly mounted and secured. No abrasions, bulges, and cuts because it is rubber. ICD. I is inflation. Inflation is 100 psi. C is condition. Where is even? D is tread down. This for 30 seconds. This must be a new tire. No retread. Alright. Second of all, our rim. Our rim is properly mounted and secured. It's not cracked, bent, or broken, not missing any nuts, bolts, and screws. No illegal welds. No illegal holes. Our lug nuts. They're properly mounted and secured. They're all present. I see no shiny threads or rust trails, which would indicate looseness. Our brake hub. Properly mounted and secured, not cracked, bent, or broken, not missing any nuts, bolts, and screws. I go on level ground, pull up the cap, put my finger in there. If I had oil, I knew I was okay. If there's no oil, I'm either not on level ground or there's no oil. And finally, my valve stem is properly mounted and secured, not cracked, bent, or broken, not missing any nuts, bolts, and screws, not leaking, and has a cap.
I ain't worried about it. Don't worry about it.
And also my tire. Is that yours? Oh, that was yours?
Tires are not leaking.
Tire, I just said
Tires are
that.
not leaking.
Yeah, I just said that. Tire not leaking. That takes care of A. Alright, let's look at B. Starts off with your mirror. It's properly mounted and secured. It's not cracked, bent, or broken. Not missing any nuts, bolts, and screws. The mirrors themselves are properly mounted and secured, not cracked. My door. First off, I got my door hinge. Properly mounted and secured, not cracked, bent, or broken, not missing any nuts, bolts, and screws, and allows the door to open and close smoothly. Next, I have the door. is properly mounted and secure, no abrasions, bulges, and cuts. Next, I have my door latch. It's properly mounted, secure, not cracked, bent, or broken, not missing any nuts, bolts, and screws. Unlocks, locks the door. Fuel tank, properly mounted and secured, not cracked, bent, or broken, not missing any nuts, bolts, or screws, not leaking. Fuel cap, properly mounted and secured. It has a seal, chain, and T-bar, not leaking. My static straps or tank straps, they're properly mounted and secured, not missing any nuts, bolts, and screws. My lining is properly mounted and secured, no abrasions, bulges, and cuts, no metal to metal. If I had jet fuel, I would check it the same way. Moving back, marker light is properly mounted and secured, not cracked, bent, or broken, not missing any nuts, bolts, and screws. Clean, operational, amber in color. My L reflectors, they're properly mounted and secured, no abrasions, bulges, and cuts. Clean, operational, clear color. My exhaust is properly mounted and secured, not cracked, bent, or broken, not missing any nuts, bolts, or screws. Not leaking, which will be indicated by a suit. Catwalk is properly mounted and secure, not cracked, bent, or broken, not missing any nuts, bolts, and screws, no debris. Catwalk steps, properly mounted and secured, not cracked, bent, or broken, not missing any nuts, bolts, and screws, and will hold the driver's weight. Drive shaft is properly mounted and secured, not cracked, bent, or broken, not twisted, not missing any nuts, bolts, and screws. My frame and cross member, properly mounted and secure, they're not cracked, bent, or broken, not missing nuts, bolts, and screws, no illegal welds, no illegal holes. Underneath, I have my torque arm. Torque arm is properly mounted and secured, not cracked, bent, or broken, not missing any nuts, bolts, and screws. Next, I have my splash guard. Properly mounted and secured, not cracked, bent, or broken, not missing any nuts, bolts, and screws. Rubber flat, properly mounted and secured, not missing any nuts, bolts, and screws, no abrasions, bulges, or cuts. Now I got my three components. Three components exactly the same as on a steer tire, on the steers. First off, suspension. There's 6 of them. Spring mount, properly mounted, secure, not cracked, bent, or broken, not missing any nuts, bolts, and screws. Bushing, properly mounted, secure, not worn. Leaf spring, properly mounted, secure, not cracked, bent, or broken, not scissored, not twisted. U-bolt, properly mounted, secure, not cracked, bent, or broken, not missing any nuts, bolts, and screws. My shock absorber. Shock absorber, properly mounted and secured, not cracked, bent, or broken, not missing any nuts, bolts, and screws, not leaking. And finally, my airbag. My airbag is properly mounted and secured, not cracked, no abrasions, bulges, and cuts, fully inflated, not leaking. Next are my brakes. Again, 5. Brake hoses, properly mounted and secured, no abrasions, bulges, and cuts, not leaking. Brake chamber, properly mounted and secure, not cracked, bent, or broken, not missing any nuts, bolts, and screws, not leaking. Slack adjuster push rod, properly mounted and secure, not cracked, bent, or broken, not missing any nuts, bolts, and screws, and no more than 1 inch of play with the brakes released. Brake lining, properly mounted and secure, not cracked, bent, or broken, not missing any nuts, bolts, and screws. The lining has no less than 1/4 inch at the thinnest part. No grease, no debris. Finally, my brake drum is properly mounted and secured, not cracked, bent, or broken, not missing any nuts, bolts, and screws. No illegal welds, no illegal holes, no grease, no debris. Finally, my tires and rim. Tires, properly mounted and secured, no abrasions, bulges, and cuts. Inflation, 100 psi. seal is properly mounted and secured, not cracked, bent, or broken, not missing any nuts, bolts, or screws, not leaking. Valve stem, properly mounted and secured, not cracked, bent, or broken, not missing any nuts, bolts, and screws, not leaking. I will do axle 3 like I did axle 2. Mud flap. First, the frame is properly mounted and secured. It's not cracked, bent, or broken. Not missing any nuts, bolts, and screws. The flap. No abrasions, bulges, and cuts. Not missing any nuts, bolts, and screws. And no higher than 8 inches from the ground. DOT tape. Properly mounted and secured. No abrasions, bulges, and cuts. Must be 100%. Goes from white to red. Red in color, and reverse light. It's clean, operational, clear in color. Clearance, because it's a sliding fifth wheel. Clearance between my landing gear and mud flap allows me to make left and right turns safe